Welcome to a podcast by Chainsaw Phoenix. This is your host, David. This is the podcast of Real Talk, No Filter. I have on my guest, Kelly, which has gone through tragedy, heartbreak, overcame so much. But don't let me introduce it and tell her the story. Let her do it. So, Kelly, please tell me.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and yeah, my story is kind of long, and it sounds like something that somebody made up. I mean, it kind of does. So in late 2015, I found out that my ex-husband was cheating on me, which is not a good place to be.
No.
We were together for almost 20 years and married for almost 19. And we had a cycle in our relationship where he would cheat, we'd go to marriage counseling, things would get better, and then things would get bad again. He would cheat, marriage counseling, so on and so forth, right? And it got to the point where it's like, you know what, this is not working for me. And I just said to him in the beginning of 2016, I'm filing for divorce. So filed for divorce, went through the whole process of getting divorced. And the divorce was final on September 14th. Of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And so then September 16th, 2016, went out with friends. We were walking across the street. They were a few steps ahead of me, and a woman ran a stop sign and hit me with her car. Well, luckily, no, just wait, this is not even the bad one. This is the easy one. So knocks me over, have a couple bumps and bruises. Luckily, when she ran the stop sign, she had to slow down in order to turn. So when she slowed down, that slowed down her velocity enough that it really didn't injure me. But went to the hospital, got checked out, then went back to the bar. So yes, we went to a hospital, got checked out, got hit by a car, and then went to a bar and went drinking. Since I was in my early 20s, I've never had so many people buy me drinks at a bar before or after this moment. I mean, awesome. It was kind of wild. So then, just went through, normal life stuff. 6 weeks later, on October 24th of the same year, I get hit by another car while I'm out walking my dog.
Oh, man.
I'm telling you, I mean, people are going to think I'm making this up. It's totally true, though. So I get hit by another car. I'm out walking my dog. I'm standing, there's no sidewalks. I'm standing like in the gravel next to the road, waiting for my dog to do his business, and never saw it coming. I mean, just that all of a sudden I'm like midair kind of thing. Went up over the car. I can remember hitting the side or it was my neighbor's driveway, but hitting my neighbor's driveway. And when my hip broke, I can remember that. And I mean, I just remember feeling it. It didn't hurt. So, I mean, there's something in your brain that just protects you from this. So it didn't hurt, but I mean, I remember feeling it break. And then I remember the driver was a female. She was standing over me, yelling at me how it was my fault. Kid you not. So I mean, at this point, I'm angry. I mean, I am like so angry, like, how can this be my fault? And I'm trying to stand and I can't figure out why I can't. So then the next moment I remember was hearing the sirens and going, okay, there's help on the way, which this is good. And then I remember waking up to a strange man in my face who is like, oh, good, you're back. And I'm like, who the hell are you? So he introduces himself. His name is Colin. He's an EMT. And I'm like, and what do you mean back? And he's like, your heart stopped. You died. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he's like, but we're going to cancel the helicopter because you're back. We're going to put you into the ambulance. We're going to take you to the hospital. Everything's going to be fine. Takes me to the hospital, or they put me in the ambulance, and they put you on a backboard. They put you in a neck brace. You cannot move. It is a totally really freaky experience, and it kind of makes you panic a little bit because you can't move.
Yes.
So I mean, you're already kind of panicking because you know that you're injured bad enough that you need an ambulance, but then you're panicking over this too. It never, the thought of, oh, you died, never really registered. Get in the ambulance. Start on the way to the hospital. Well, the closest trauma center is in the next town north of where I was living at the time. So it's about a 40-minute drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so somewhere in there, I crashed again where my heart had stopped in transit, which they were totally not expecting. So I get the same thing of, oh, you're back. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm back? And so you have to explain it again. Get to the hospital and one of the first comments was, it's possible that she'll never walk again, from a nurse. And I don't think I was supposed to hear it, but I heard it. And I went into immediate panic of, holy crap, what am I going to do? And then after that, they put me into my first surgery. So within 24 hours, I had like 9 different surgeries. I've had pins put into my hip. I had a surgery to take care of some of the internal damage, which to this day, I still don't understand exactly what all they did in there. I just know that they cut me open and had to fix things. They did surgery on both my knees. My right kneecap, it had gotten, the tendons that hold it in place had gotten cut. So they had to take the kneecap from somewhere around the middle of my shin and put it back in place and then repair the tendons. I had surgery on my ankle. I had a plate and 5 screws put into my foot, which wasn't until later, but that's just kind of the extent of a lot of them. So there was like 9 different surgeries within the first 24 hours. Well, then the next day on the 25th was my birthday. Honestly, I don't remember it. So I keep telling friends that I'm a year younger than what, my driver's license does, because that birthday doesn't count. I can't remember it. It just doesn't count. Apparently, I mean, I have pictures of it, but I don't remember it happening. My sister said, my sister showed up with like presents and a cake and trying to make it as festive as possible. And she talks about it and I'm like, I still don't remember it happening. I mean, I have pictures, I know it happened, but I don't remember it. So I had a traumatic brain injury out of the experience as well. Spent 10 days in the hospital, 3 weeks in a rehabilitation center for physical rehabilitation, not drug. When I say that, some people are like, oh, drugs. No drugs. Spent 3 weeks there. And then went back to the hospital, had the plate and 5 screws put in my foot, which was the final surgery. They couldn't cut it open right away because the swelling was so bad. We had to wait for it to go down enough so that they could cut it open and then be sure that they could get it closed again. Mm-hmm. So I went home then at that point against doctor's orders, because 2 days after the surgery was my oldest son's 18th birthday. And it's like, no, I'm going to be home for that.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's just going to happen. So we're now like 3 days before Thanksgiving was his birthday. I go home on his birthday. I get there. The doctor was like, yep, you're not going to be able to do all this stuff. And I'm like, I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. My ex had been living in my house again at that point for the whole time I was gone, because he had a small apartment and I had a house, and to take care of the kids, because technically they were still minors. I mean, somebody had to be there for them. Mm-hmm. So I have 2 children. One was 17 at the time and one was 15 at the time. And so I get there and I can't get into my house because I'm in a wheelchair and there's stairs. And it's like, okay, this is so frustrating. So my ex is there. He helps me get into the house. I get in, the wheelchair gets put into the house. It's fine. It's challenging, but it's fine. So once I'm in, it's fine. And my ex-husband, who, keep in mind, he has cheated on me multiple times. Our relationship was not good, is at the house and helping out. I also had a couple friends who would show up on a daily basis and help out and do things like help cook meals, make sure dishes are done, do laundry, the maintenance kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had help. And so then it was horrible because my ex kept doing the whole guilt trip about why I filed for divorce. And I thought you'd forgive me like all the other times, and yada, 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 those types of guilt trips. And it's like, one day I got sick of it and I just was like, no, you're in my house. You can't do this. If you want to insist on making me feel guilty about this, about asking for divorce and filing for divorce and, getting out of a relationship that was clearly not good for either one of us, then you need to leave. Mm-hmm. And I will figure it out. Don't even worry about it. Just go. After that, it was fine. So, I mean, in that respect, it improved the relationship that I have with my ex-husband, because we came to a point of that we could be civil to each other and be nice to each other. And that has maintained over the years, which is nice because it's been good for my kids that we get along. I mean, so if you're getting divorced and just find some way to get along with your ex, I mean, you don't necessarily have to be best friends, but at least be civil, because it is so much easier for your children.
That's true. That's very true. Especially when there's kids involved.
Correct. And it doesn't matter what the age of the children. And I don't care what your ex has done to you. I mean, because being cheated on multiple times is a horrible experience. I don't care. There is some way that you can find some common ground to be able to be kind to each other. Just some way. So anyway, so at this point, I'm in the wheelchair. I spent like 3 months in the wheelchair. I have like multiple casts on. It's kind of crazy. People signing them with different things. It was kind of cool. Friends that would come by, make sure that, I got out of the house to, either it was go shopping or something. I had another friend that like 2 days after I got home showed up with a bunch of wood and built a wheelchair ramp so I could get in and out easier, which was
That's
nice.
nice of them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So I mean,
nice.
So appreciate your friends, especially when they do something very nice for you, because you never know when you need somebody to like have a whole village to like just show up at your house and help you out, because it could happen. So then I went through the whole process of graduating out of the wheelchair once the cast came off, to graduating to a walker, graduating to crutches, and then finally just to a walking boot kind of scenario. And the whole physical therapy through there, I mean, it's painful. You want to quit. And they push you to the point of, I can't do this. But long term, it's what got me up and out of it and back to being able to do things like walk. I mean, it's great. Oh, and by the way, the accident that I was in where I was out walking my dog, the dog survived. The dog didn't have a scratch on him.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Not a scratch at all. So I did get back to, walking them. And then like when I first came back from rehab, the dog would not leave my side. Like, holy crap. It's like the dog must've thought I was gone forever. So would not leave my side. And then we got back to walking, and the dog got over walking past that spot a lot quicker than I did. Because, at first the dog was like, nope, we're not going. We're not going anywhere near that. Nope. It's like, we just kept going, but I would have like a little mini panic attack every time we walked past it, even though there was no car and it was like bright daylight and, it was like, oh no. So, yeah. So, I mean, there's the pain of learning how to do everything you did before. So, now you've got past the physical part of being broken. I mean, there's still things that I can't do, like because of all the hardware. They're like, yeah, you shouldn't ever run again. So like, there's no playing softball. There's no, doing any of that stuff anymore. But on the other hand, well, you know what? At least I have most of my normal life back. Sorry to say, the insurance that the woman carried did not really cover all of my treatment.
Oh, that sucks.
So I've had a lot of debt to have to pay off because of somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
But there's also, the good point of, well, I can still walk again. I mean, that's like probably my biggest thing is like, yay, I can walk. Especially when, one of the nurses is like, I don't think it's ever going to happen again. And whether I was meant to hear it or not, that was something that played over in your head. The other thing that I really remember is going back to staying in the hospital and having the traumatic brain injury is that I'm in the hospital. Nobody knows where I am. I mean, like none of my family, none of my friends, nobody knows that this is what happened, because the police called my son, but my son wouldn't have known to call anybody else other than his dad. So I'm like, I get my phone out and I'm trying to text somebody, and words made sense. Like I could remember to spell individual words, and like I could read individual words, but to string them together to make them make sense as a sentence, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I had to call a nurse and have somebody read for me what was being said and help type out what I wanted to say, because I couldn't read. And that made me panic. It's like, holy cow, if I can't read, what the heck am I going to do? I mean, my whole job is, dependent on being intelligent and reading and writing reports, and what the heck am I going to do? As the swelling went down, that ability came back. So that was really good. I do still have some memory issues, where it is more difficult to create new memories, like things that happen pre-accident, easy to remember, but unless something is like a large scale memory, it's harder to hold on to them.
That's
Yeah,
very
so
tough to. Sorry, that's very tough to just deal with, especially like those memories that you, especially like childhood memories that you like. Those things
yeah.
must be hard to let go of in a sense. So
Well, no, I mean, like I said, I can remember them. I mean, like that, but there's just certain things that, like I can remember being able to feel time. I mean, I know that you know what I'm talking about, where
Mhm.
like you can feel time passing, like you're in an activity and you're like, oh, you know what, I've been doing this for about an hour, and you look at the clock and, yeah, it's been about an hour. Well, I have no ability to feel that time. So I have to set timers for like everything,
Wow.
because otherwise I'll get involved in an activity and it feels like no time has passed and it doesn't matter. I
Mhm.
mean, if I'm not watching a clock, time doesn't exist. So it's kind of a weird thing, but it's like I remember being able to do it, but I can't do it now.
Mhm.
So it gets, there's interesting things about it that make you go, oh yeah, I need to adapt to a new life. So after I got out of the wheelchair and was walking, then they put me through therapy to deal with the TBI. And after a few months of dealing with that, they went, well, you're testing normal, so we have to let you go, and you're fine. You'll deal with life just fine. And I'm like, wait, no, this is not right. And they're like, well, with my medical insurance, that this was something that they, once you're tested in the normal range, they let you go. That's just the way it is. So I'm like, okay, that's great. Now what do I do? So what else does any other human being do when you're faced with, well, traditional therapy is not getting you where you want to be? You turn to Google, right? Because Google knows everything.
Exactly.
It's a true thing. That's what we do. If we don't know and we can't get into our doctor right away, we Google our symptoms, and next thing you know, we're all dying. So I went to Google and I found this guy online, and he had a website, and his website talks about how he was in the military, he has a TBI, he has PTSD, and that he knew how to get, people further than what traditional therapy was allowing therapists to do. And I'm like, okay. So I set up a call with him. I talked to him a few times, and then I signed up for his program. And I spent 6 months working with him. And honestly, I mean, learning how to do things like, set the timers and put the reminders on calendars and, do all that stuff and do it immediately when you're thinking about it is like what keeps me on time and what keeps me kind of like looking like, hey, I can handle anything. But I mean, I still think I could probably handle anything, but it's what keeps the things that I'm missing out of my life on track, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I mean, but it did take, and it's not just the learning about the timers, but it's also learning to think about yourself differently. Cause I mean, I was still thinking like, okay, I'm still very broken. And it's like, no, I'm not broken. I'm just different than what I was before. It's changing that mindset of I'm not the person I was. And that's anybody going through any kind of change. You're never going to be the person you were before whatever happened to you, whether that's a divorce, whether it's an accident like what I had, whether it's, okay, I went to, I'm making this change on purpose and going to
Mhm.
school. Well, you're never going to be the person you were before. And we have a tendency to want to hold on to what we had and not let go of it and not understand that our future is brighter when we make those purposeful changes.
I like that. That's very true. It's like a metamorphosis in a sense.
It very much is.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're forced upon us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, so I worked with this guy for about 6 months. And then shortly after that, I was like, okay, you know what? I want to start dating again. And I had dated kind of in between there, like not seriously, but, had gone out with a few people. And it's like, no, I kind of miss the idea of having that companion in my life. So I'm going to go out and date with a purpose. And it's like, okay, so what do I want in my life? And I was like, well, I started a list. I could only think of 3 words when I started, which was, I want somebody who's faithful. I want somebody who's honest. And I want somebody who's kind.
Mhm.
That was my first 3 words. So started dating. And honestly, dating in your 40s, by the way, is a very challenging thing to do. I mean, like I remember dating in my 20s was challenging, but your dating pool is bigger in your 20s than it is in your 40s, and it gets more challenging as you get older. So anyway, dating. It was not going well. It's like, nope. I mean, and guys my age, I don't understand why people do this. Like they'll meet you and they'll talk to you, and whether it's in person or online, and they'll be like, oh yeah, you sound like a great person. Let's get together, let's have dinner or drinks or whatever. And then they set up a date and time, and it's like, great. You know what? You go to the place because I mean, I'm not meeting somebody in their house. That's like scary. My dad was a cop. Trust me, scary. Um, don't meet strangers in their house. Meet them in public.
Mhm.
So met them in public, and then they just wouldn't show. Well, that of course is like this big blow to your ego. So this had gone on for months, and I'd have some guys show up, and one guy lasted a few months, and the dating scene. You date for a while.
Mhm.
And it was okay. And it's like, but I still wasn't finding what I was looking for. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a break from dating. Well, when I took a break from dating, through some group that I was in, I met a woman, and she's like, yeah, I'm starting a group on goal setting and accomplishing your goals. And I'm like, I have goals. I think I need your group. I'm going to go join it. Okay, so I started in the group, and it was like pretty simple of post your goals. What do you want out of life, and how are you going to get them? And then she asked, and it's like, okay, participated in all the stuff. And then she asked a question. I can't remember exactly what the question was, but I saved the video. She's like, and please answer it as a video. So I
Mhm.
saved the video. I still have it. So this is like 2018. Yeah, it was March 2018 because that's when the group started. And it started out of just talking about different things that I wanted out of life, and then it got into all the reasons why I didn't think I could have it, and I'm like crying by the end of this video. I mean, it's like horribly emotional. It's like I feel so broken because I had this horrible relationship, and then I'm like actually physically broken. There's things that I just can't do anymore because of this accident, and there's the traumatic brain injury. It's like, who really wants to love this train wreck of a person? I mean, we laugh, but I mean, this is really what it was.
That's true.
I
You're
mean,
very right.
and I
Yep.
really did feel like this horrible train wreck. It was awful. Um, and she's like, and then I get this message from the woman who started the group, and she's like, you need to come be an admin with us. You need to like start talking to women because everybody feels kind of like that, even when they're not as in an extreme, had the extreme circumstances handed to them that you've had. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do that. She's like, that's okay. Neither do we really, but we're doing it anyway. I said, okay, sure. So then I started coaching all these women from around the world inside this group. And most of it was dating advice because most women, that's what we want is a relationship. I mean, we're kind of hardwired for it. And it's like, okay, my best advice was make sure that you know what you're looking for before you even go out there and date. I mean, because otherwise, if you don't have a standard, how do you know that that person meets what you want out
That's
of a
very true.
partner? I mean,
Very true.
and that list that I was talking about, it grew over time. Every time I met somebody or was with somebody and they didn't meet a standard, why didn't they meet the standard that I had? What happened? Well, that became the opposite of that became a trait that I wanted in that person. So, I mean, this wasn't like a shallow list of, oh, I want somebody who's 6'4" and blonde and blue eyed or whatever it is. This is literally, the traits of a personality. It had nothing to do with what the person looked like. I mean, it could have been anybody.
Mhm.
It's just that you had to meet this. So I have a list. It was like at the end when I finally met who is now my fiance, I think it was like 23 things. So then shortly after this group and adminning and doing that, a friend was like, okay, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try dating again. And they're like, you should go out and try dating younger men. I'm like, why? They're like, well, your dating pool would be bigger and it might be fun and at least it'll be an ego boost because you've been through so much, whatever. And I'm like, all right. So they set me up with a Tinder account. And I went out with a couple of younger men and it was fun, but it still was just like, okay, I'm still not finding what I want. And then I went out with men my age again and still wasn't finding what I want. And then again, went through the whole cycle of that they don't show up and was like, okay, you know what? Younger men always show up for a date. And I had like 3 or 4 dates where like they just didn't show. And it was like, okay, younger men always show up. They always have. So I went and went on Tinder again and was like, oh, nice looking guy, nice smile. Okay. And then his profile says that I'm a single dad. And I'm like, okay, so he's, had a relationship, he has kids. He talks about how, he talked a little bit about what he does with his kids. So it's like, okay, so he cares about his kids, which is good. And then his profile said something to the effect of cougars can apply here or something like that. I mean, it was funny. It was stated in a very humorous way. And I was like, okay, sense of humor. Okay, let's just go on a date. And it's like, okay. And it really doesn't matter because it's basically, we're going to date once, maybe twice. And then he's going to go off his direction. I'll go mine and it'll be whatever. So this is how I met my fiance. He is 15 years younger than I am. So we went out on this first date and because he asked me out right away on Tinder because it was just, you just match and see where the conversation goes. And he's like, no, let's get together and we'll go out and, I see your profile says you like to play darts. I play darts. Let's go out and play some darts. So we had this first date and the first words out of his mouth when he sat across the table from me are, I'm going through a divorce and I'm not going back. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do with that. I don't. And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't really matter. It's a date. So what? Let's see what happens. So by the way, he did not play darts at that point, really. I mean, he had played, like he knew the rules of the game, but he sucked. I like kicked his ass. So at some point he must have gotten tired of losing because he's like, what else is there to do in this town? And I'm like, well, I know there's a band playing across town. And by this point, I'm feeling like pretty confident, like, okay, he's not going to like murder me like on the side of the road. So we get into my car and we drive to where this band is playing. And I'm like, keep in mind, I've never heard of this band. I don't know what kind of music they play. I have no idea. I said, we're just going to randomly go check out this band. And he's like, okay, that sounds like fun. And so we went and we checked out the band and we stayed there for a while and the music was okay. I mean, they weren't like a really great band. So then he's like, well, is there some place we can go dancing? And I'm like, yep, College Town. Of course, there's some place we can go dancing. There's a couple of them. Let's go check them out. So we went and we checked them out. We stayed out until bar closed, which in Wisconsin, which is where I live, it's like 2 a.m. So it's like a really late date. It was like the best date I had had in a long time. And then he was from the next town over. So he was staying in a hotel. So I dropped him off at his hotel and I went home. And I'm like, yeah, I'm probably never going to hear from him again, but whatever, it was fun. No, the next morning he's texting me on his drive back to the town that he lives in. And then I didn't hear from him for a while. And then he texted again and going, hey, by the way, I'm in Plover. Where are you? And I'm like, oh, well, I was out with friends. We were playing pool. And I'm like, hey, we're at this bar. We're playing pool. Stop by. Well, this is a Wednesday night because on Wednesdays, this bar offered free pool. So it's like we would go out, we'd play pool for a couple hours and then go back home. I ended up staying out with him until like 11:30 at night on a work night. And we were just sitting in the bar talking and we found out that we had like all this stuff in common. And it just kind of evolved from there. And then people were like, and all my friends are like, why are you dating this younger guy? And it's like, because he's a genuinely nice guy. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? I enjoy the company of this guy for a while and then he finds somebody else and we move on. Big deal. Well, that never happened. Yeah. So about a year after we started dating, we moved in together. And then now it is 2 years after that, we got engaged on July 4th, which is kind of cool. And then now we're planning to get married in 2023. My kids, who are closer to his age than I am, are actually pretty cool with it. So anybody who's wondering, my kids were like, you're weird, mom. We don't know what to do with you. But they get along with them, they hang out with them, it's a cool situation. he has two children. Like his profile said, he does have two children. They are younger, so they are 8 and 6. Which that it was kind of a surprise to go, oh yeah, 8 and 6. What was I thinking? It's like starting over again.
Exactly.
It's like I got my kids to the finish line where they were almost adults. And every parent who has adult children knows that your worry, it never ends.
Mhm.
Just more of the responsibilities on them than on you at that point. So it's like, oh yeah, get them to 18 and you're done. You're not done. It's just it's a different kind of relationship than when they're 8 and 6. So yeah, that is challenging some days. But on the other hand, I can't say that I would change anything other than if and probably my life would have never ended up this way if it hadn't happened. But if I could change the accident, would I? Yeah, probably, because I would not be facing some of the challenges that I am today.
Makes
But
sense.
on the
Yeah.
other hand, going through all this and then working with the group, I mean, it did cause me to change careers where I was a quality engineer for about 10 years ish. And then change careers to be a life coach. Cause it's like, you know what, I have found that that is like the true passion of just being able to go out and help people and help them overcome whatever it is that they're facing. I mean, and people are like, oh, you can't do that. You have to have a specialty. Oh no, you can, because it's all, how are you thinking about it? I mean, if you are thinking about it in a way of I can't, of course you're not going to, because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if it's I can, yeah, you might face failure and you might have bumps in your road, but you're going to get up after every single one of them and go, okay, now what? Okay, now what? What do I need to do next to make this happen?
I like that.
So,
You're absolutely right on that one.
so there's my story, David.
That's
And I
awesome.
told you, it's like out of a movie. It's not, it does not, when I think about it and go, all this stuff happened in the last 6 years. How? Where did that, how did that all happen in that short period of time and it just totally changed the whole course of life.
That's awesome. That's a very awesome story. And again, like I said earlier, you went from tragedy, heartbreak, to being an overcomer of the most difficult time in your life. Your body went through a repair stage. You went from not being able to walk to walking, from not being able to love, in quotation, to loving someone and literally find a soulmate. And I'm pretty sure at the time you weren't even expecting someone younger than you. So even that
no.
shows that love, it's not bind by age, it's bind by interest, by common grounds, and so on and so forth. So that's an awesome story.
No, the love did not come in the package that I expected at all.
Mhm.
I mean, because I was always the, snotty, stuck up one who was like, oh yeah, I have to date men taller than I am. Well, I'm tall for a woman. I'm like 5'10". He's the same height as I am. Uh, younger man. Who knew? Who expected that? I mean, younger men have a reputation for, being the playboy, and well, apparently that's not true either.
That's true. Very, very true.
So be careful when you're out there. Don't dismiss somebody just because it's not the package you think it should come in.
I like that. Any advice for anyone that has either gone through something traumatic, that wants that pick me up boost?
So while you're in it, there is no actual pick me up. I mean, it is, you are literally in the trenches. You are fighting to either maintain or regain a piece of your life. And some of it you may have to let go of and may have to learn to think differently about who you are now and accept your new reality. But to get there, to get to the point of acceptance, it is understanding of what can you do. It's not, I mean, I'm not saying don't grieve what you've lost. I mean, of course you should. But on the other hand, you also need to go, okay, I also still have all of this. And then I've learned these new skills. Like, I mean, I don't think I would have ever been motivated to be a life coach without that. I would have just kept going, just being an engineer and whatever, it would have been fine. And I wouldn't have ever gone, well, wait, other people need help, because without help, I would have never gotten there. So don't be afraid to reach out to get the help you need. I mean, be that going through therapy, be it going to be to a coach of some sort, be that just your best friend. It doesn't matter. Reach out when you need help.
I like that. That's fantastic. Final thoughts.
I don't know what kind of final thoughts have you got?
It's very interesting. Like, I'm not like, it's such an impactful story, to tell you the truth, and everything you've been through. How did your kids go through that? Like what was their sense?
So, I mean, like my kids came and because, we're 40 miles apart while I was like in the hospital and in rehab, they would come and visit when friends or family had the ability to bring them. So, I didn't see them very often during that stage, but I mean, like we talked by phone and we texted, I mean, that kind of stuff. So it's not, but I know that they've said that, okay, we were scared that you were going to die. And that's like, okay, well, apparently I didn't. So we're fine there. And it's like, I get it. I understand, and it's like, do you guys want to talk about that? And they're like, nope, we just, that's was it. That's fine. And then, but then there's also the, after that, it's like, I think they expected me to come home and it be perfectly normal. And when I come home in a wheelchair, it wasn't. And I don't think they knew what to do. So I think they spent a lot of their time just kind of hanging out with me and then feeling kind of helpless. Cause I mean, I remember they would ask an awful lot. Do you need anything? Do you want anything?
That sometimes that becomes annoying after a while.
And it's like, no, I'm fine. I mean, it's okay. But I think but a lot of people did that. And I think it comes from that, you're helpless in a situation that there's really not much you can actually do and you want to help. So, you ask that question a lot, hoping for an answer that will give you something to do so that you can feel like, hey, I've helped out and been useful. But then, I mean, if you have a friend in that situation, whether you ask them 50 million times or not, it doesn't matter. What matters is going to matter most is that you were there. I mean, even if you didn't actually do anything other than show up and visit for an afternoon to break up the monotony, you showed up.
That's true. That's very true. I like that. That's very awesome. Whew. I'm literally just like digesting it.
Well, follow-up interviews are allowed. If you have any questions, just let me know.
For sure. So I'm just going to end it then. Okay. Honestly, like I'm literally digesting everything. It's a lot to take in, getting the accident.
I told you it's a movie.
You should write a book. Honestly, you write a book on all that. That'll be an awesome book.
Yeah, I could write a book on it. It would be interesting.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm going to say congratulations when the time comes for you to get married. Just pretend I'm like in the audience and just stand up and clapping for you.
Thank you.
I'm very proud that you saw life in a different point of view. And I'm very, very, very happy for you. I love to see that Christmas tree. I'm just like, yes, it's still.
Oh, yeah. My Christmas tree in the background. Yeah, we had talked before we started recording that I have my mom's whole house in my house. So when I started moving stuff in, because it was really in a hurry, and it really takes months when you're talking about going through somebody's whole house to go with it. So my Christmas tree is buried behind boxes that are boxes of all my mom's stuff. So I can't get to it to take it down yet.
It's
so
okay.
I might be there I'm just prepared for next Christmas at this
That's
point.
exactly what it is. So it's already dressed and groomed, so you're good to go. Kelly, it was fantastic to hear you out and listen to your story. I'm for sure we're gonna do a follow-up interview. You are a treat. I love the laughs and the comfort that I actually got from talking to you. Excellent, just excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, David. It would be great to come back. And this was a lot of fun. So thank you very much.
For sure. Thank you so much.